Chapter 1 of Book 1 the Less of Metaphysics by Aristotle, translated by John McMahon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Jeffrey Edwards. Chapter 1. Speculation respecting truth is partly difficult and partly easy, and a proof is the following, that in the pursuit of truth, neither is any one philosopher, in a way worthy of the dignity of the subject, able to attain this, nor can all investigators fail in reaching it, but that each says something to the point concerning nature, and individually that, indeed, they add nothing, or but little, to this speculation respecting truth. But from all these collected together, that there ensues something of magnitude. Wherefore, if indeed it so seems to be the case, as we happen to say in the proverb, quote, "Who will miss the door?" close quote, in this way, truly, would the speculation of truth be easy. But for philosophers to have a certain whole, and not to be able to have each some portion, indicates the difficulty of it, and perhaps also from the fact that the difficulty arises in two ways, the cause of this may not be so much in things themselves as in us. For, as the eyes of bats are to the light that follows the dawn of day, so also is the mind of our soul to those things which above all are naturally the most splendid. But not only is it just to return thanks to those whose opinions one may have fellowship with, but also to those, moreover, who have enunciated their sentiments more superficially, for even these, likewise, contribute something, for they have previously exercised our speculative habit. For, if there had not been a Timotheus, we would not have had much melody, and unless there had been a Phrynis, there would not have been such a person as Timotheus. But, in the same manner also, it is in the case of those who have declared their sentiments concerning truth. For indeed, from some of them we have inherited certain opinions, but others have been the causes of these becoming opinions of theirs. But it is correct also that philosophy should be styled a science speculative of truth. For of speculative science the end is truth, but of practical science a work. For even though they may examine how a thing is, practical men do not investigate into the cause of that thing in itself, but in relation to something else, and as connected with the present time. But we do not know the truth without the knowledge of cause. But especially is each thing that amongst other things, according to which also there subsists in other things that which is synonymous. As, for example, fire is a thing most hot, for also in the rest of entities is this a cause of their heat. Wherefore also, most true is that which is a cause to posterior natures of their being true. Wherefore is it necessary that the first principles of things always existing should always be most true, for not sometimes are they true, neither is anything the cause of being to those, but those are the causes of being in other things. Wherefore, as each thing is disposed in regard of existence, so also is it in regard of truth. Chapter 2. But truly, that there is at least some first principle, and that the causes of entities are not infinite, either in a progress in a straightforward direction, or according to form, is evident. For neither, as of matter, is it possible that this particular entity proceed from this to infinity. For instance, flesh indeed from earth, and earth from air, and air from fire, and this without ever coming to a standstill. Nor can there an infinite progression take place with the origin of the principle of motion, as, for instance, that man should have been moved by the air, and this by the sun, and the sun by discord, and of this that there should be no end. Nor in like manner can this infinite progression take place with the final cause, that walking, for instance, should be gone through for the sake of health, and this for the sake of enjoyment, and this enjoyment for the sake of something else, and similarly, that one thing invariably should subsist on account of another, and in like manner is it the case with the formal cause. For of media, to which externally there is something last and first, it is necessary that what is first should be a cause of those things which are subsequent to it. For if we must declare what is the cause of three things, we will assert that it is the first of the three. For, doubtless, it is not the last, at least, for that is not, at any rate, at the extremity of anything as a cause. But, truly, neither is it the middle, for this is the cause of one thing only. But it makes no difference whether one or many media be assumed, nor whether they are things infinite or finite. But in this way, all the portions of things infinite, and of the infinite in general, are similarly media up to the extremity, so that if there is nothing that is the first, there is in short no cause. But neither, truly, is it possible, as regards a progression downwards, to proceed on to infinity, in case that which is in a progression upwards involves a first principle, as, for example, that from fire indeed water should be produced, but from this, earth, and so invariably that a certain different genus be produced. For in a twofold manner is one thing produced from another, not as this particular thing is said to take place after that, for example, the Olympic Games, from the Isthmian, either as a man is produced from a boy undergoing a change, or air from water. As indeed, then, we say that a man is produced from a boy, as a thing that has been from that which is in a process of formation, or that which has been finished from that which is being finished, or tends towards perfection. For always is there a certain medium, as production is a medium between existence and non-existence, so also is the thing that is being produced between entity and non-entity, and a person receiving instruction is one becoming scientifically learned. And this is the meaning of what is affirmed, that from a person learning is produced one that is scientifically learned, and just as water is generated from air on account of the air having undergone corruption. Wherefore, in the former instance, the things adduced indeed do not revert into one another, nor is a child produced from a man, for that which is being produced does not arise from the act of generation, but is subsequent to generation. For so also the day is generated from the dawn, because it is posterior to this. Wherefore, neither is the dawn generated from the day, but the other instances revert into each other. In both these cases, however, it is impossible to pursue the progress on to infinity, for, in the one case of those that are media, there must needs be an end, and in the other case, the things adduced revert into one another, for the destruction of one is the generation of the other. But at the same time also it is impossible that what is first, seeing that it is eternal, should be subject to corruption. For, since generation is not infinite in an ascending progression, that nature must needs not be eternal from which anything has been produced, as from that which is primary and has been subject to corruption. But this is impossible. Further, the final cause is an end. But a thing of this sort is that which does not subsist on account of another, but other things on account of that. Wherefore, if that which is last be a thing of this sort, there will not be a progression to infinity. But if there is no such thing, I mean, that which is last, the final cause will have no existence. But they who introduce this infinite progression forget that they destroy the nature of the good, although no one would undertake entering on any course of action, not intending to go on to a termination of his undertaking. Nor would there be design in such things. For one who is possessed of mind always does a thing for some purpose or other, for this is a termination for it. For the end proposed is a termination. But, indeed, neither can the formal cause admit of being referred to another definition more copious in reason. For the prior definition is invariably more the definition of a thing, but the subsequent is not so. But to that of which there is no first, neither has that which is next in order any existence. Further, they destroy scientific knowledge who make assertions in this way, for it is not even possible to understand anything before we come to individual things, and scientific knowledge has no existence in this case. For things infinite in this manner, how is it possible to apprehend? For the infinite here is not a thing similar to infinity in the case of a line, which, as regards its divisions indeed, does not come to a standstill, but is indivisible. Nor is it possible for one to apprehend these divisions, except he imposes some limit to their divisibility. Wherefore he will not reckon the divisions or sections who goes through the infinite in detail, but also as regards the matter. So far as it is such, in what is being moved, it is necessary to understand it thus far, and for nothing that is infinite is there any possibility of existence. But if this is not the case, not infinite at any rate, is that by which we may know the infinite. But, doubtless, if the species of causes were infinite in number, neither in such a case would the perception of our knowledge be possible. For then we think we know, when we may make known the causes. But the infinite according to addition, it is not, in finite duration, possible to exhaust. Chapter 3. But lectures on philosophic subjects fall out according to our habits. For, as we have been accustomed, so we deem it right a thing should be expressed. And whatever things are besides these do not appear similar, but, from the fact of our not being habituated thereto, they seem more unknown and strange. For the habitual is more known, and how great force the habitual possesses, the laws make manifest, in which fabulous and puerile things have greater force from usage than the reality of our knowledge concerning them. But some persons, indeed, do not admit those making assertions, unless one speaks with mathematical precision, but others do not approve of what is said, unless they express themselves by means of an exemplar, and others think it right to adduce a poet as a witness, and some require all things to be expressed with accuracy, whereas accuracy is troublesome to others, either on account of their not being able to carry on a train of reasoning, or on account of their considering such as mere quibbling about verbal niceties. For the precise involves some such thing. Wherefore, as in the case of contracts, so also in that of philosophic discourses, precision seems to be a thing to some persons that is illiberal. Wherefore it is necessary that one should have been instructed what way we must admit each and all points of inquiry, as it would be absurd at the same time to seek for scientific knowledge, and the mode of attaining such knowledge. But it is not easy to acquire either of these. Now, mathematical accuracy of language is not to be required in all things, but in those things that do not involve any connection with matter. Wherefore, such is not the natural mode of discovering truth. For perhaps the whole of nature involves matter. Therefore, first must we investigate what nature is. For in this way also will it be evident about what only natural science is conversant, and whether it is the province of one science or of many to speculate into causes and first principles. End of Chapter 3 and end of Book 1 the less. Recording in memory of Mitchell Edwards. Chapter 1 of Book 2 of Metaphysics by Aristotle. Translated by John McMahon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Jeffrey Edwards. Chapter 1. For the advancement of the science under investigation, it is necessary for us, first, to take a review of those points respecting which one ought to doubt in the first instance, but But these are whatsoever subjects some speculators have entertained opinions of after a different mode, and whatever, beyond these, may happen to have been overlooked. For it will contribute towards one's object, who wishes to acquire a facility in the gaining of knowledge, to doubt judiciously, for a subsequent acquisition in the way of knowledge is the solution of previous doubts. But when one is ignorant of the bond of a thing, it is not possible for such to loose it. But the perplexity of the intellect makes manifest this assertion respecting the matter in hand. For, so far forth as the dianoetic faculty doubts, so far does it undergo something similar to persons loaded with chains. For it is impossible, in both cases, to advance further. Wherefore it is necessary, in the first instance, to speculate into all the difficulties involved in the present subject, both on account of these things, and also from the fact that they who carry on an investigation, without doubting first, are similar to persons ignorant where they ought to walk, and in addition to these things, neither can such know whether he has discovered the object of his speculation or not. For the end is not manifest to this speculator, but to one who has previously doubted, in a judicious way it is manifest. But, further, there is a necessity that a person should be better qualified for forming a judgment, who has heard all the reasons, as it were, of adversaries and opposing disputants. Now, the first source of perplexity is concerning those things which we have expressed doubts of in our preface, namely, whether to speculate into causes be the province of one or many sciences, and whether it be the province of this science to discover merely the primary principles of substance, or also to speculate concerning the first principles from which all derive their demonstrations, as, for instance, whether it is possible to affirm and deny one and the same thing at the same time or not, and concerning the other things of such a kind. And, if it is the province of this science to be conversant about substance, whether one may be about all, or whether there be many such in existence, and if many, whether all are akin to each other, or it may be proper to style some of them sciences of, quotes, wisdom, and others of them something else. And this very thing is amongst the necessary points of investigation, whether it should be affirmed that sensible substances exist only, or whether others also subsist in addition to these, and whether there is a genus singly, or a number of genera of substances, according to the opinion of those who introduce both forms and mathematical entities as things intermediate between these and sensibles. Concerning these, therefore, as we have said, an examination must be made, and also concerning substances, whether the speculation extend only to them, or to the essential accidents of these substances. But, in addition to these points, we might inquire in regard of sameness, and diversity, and similarity and dissimilarity, and identity and contrariety, and concerning priority, and subsequence, and all the rest of such things, concerning as many as the dialecticians endeavour to examine, instituting their inquiries from matters merely of opinion. We might, I say, investigate whose province it is to speculate into all of these. Further, may one investigate whatsoever things are essential accidents in these very things, both not only what each of them is, but also whether in truth one be contrary to one, and whether genera are first principles and elements, or those things into which, as being inherent, each thing is divided, and if the genera are so, whether they are such things as are predicated last, or the first concerning individuals, as, for example, whether animal or man be a first principle, and be so rather than a singular. But most especially must we investigate and examine, with pains, as to whether besides matter there is any absolute cause or not, and whether this is separate or not, and whether it be one or such causes may be many in number, and whether there is anything beside entirety. But I mean by entirety when anything has been predicated of matter, or nothing, or whether this is the case with some things indeed, but not so with others, and what sort of entities such are. Moreover, whether first principles are limited in number, or in species, both those that subsist in formal causes, and those that are in the subject, and whether of things corruptible and incorruptible the principles be the same or different, and whether all are incorruptible, or whether of corruptible things there are corruptible principles. Moreover also, the most difficult of all, and involving the greatest perplexity, is the inquiry whether unity and entity, as the Pythagoreans and Plato used to affirm, be not anything else but the substance of entities, or this be not the case, but that there be some other subject, as Empedocles says harmony is, and a certain other philosopher fire, and another water or air, and whether first principles are universal, or are as the singulars of things, and whether they subsist in capacity or in energy. Further, whether they subsist otherwise than according to motion. For also these speculations would furnish much perplexity. But in addition to these points, there remains the inquiry whether numbers and dimensions and figures and points be certain substances or not, and, if they are substances, whether they are capable of being separated from sensibles, or be inherent in them. For concerning all of these questions, not only is it difficult successfully to attain unto the truth, but neither is a judicious doubting easy for the reasoning faculties. Chapter 2. In the first place, indeed, therefore, let us institute an inquiry concerning the first assertions which we have made, namely, whether to speculate concerning all kinds of causes be the province of one or many sciences. For how would it be the province of a single science to take cognizance of existing first principles when they are not contrary to each other? But further, in the case of many of the entities, all do not exist in all of them. For in what way is it possible for the principle of motion to be found in things incapable of motion, or that the nature of the good should, if everything which may be essentially good, and by reason of its own nature, is an end, and so a cause, inasmuch as on account of that other things are both produced and exist? But the end and the final cause are an end of any action, and all things in the act of doing are attended with motion. Therefore, in things incapable of motion, it would not be possible that this should exist as the first principle, or that there be therein any essential good. Wherefore also, in mathematics, nothing is demonstrated through this cause, nor is there any demonstration for the reason that a thing is better or worse. But neither does any mathematician make mention at all of any such thing whatsoever. Therefore, for this reason, certain of the sophists, as, for example, Aristippus, regarded these sciences with disdain. For in the other arts, even the mechanical ones themselves, as in those of carpentry and shoemaking, he said that wherefore a thing is better or worse could be declared in every respect, but that the mathematical sciences make no account concerning things good and evil. But truly, if there are, at least, many sciences of causes and different sciences of a different first principle, which of these must be said to be the one under investigation, or whom of those that are in possession of them shall we pronounce scientifically informed, particularly in the matter under inquiry? For in the same subject is it possible that all the modes of causes exist, as, for example, of a house, the origin of the principle of motion is from art and the builder, and the final cause is the work, but the matter is earth and stones, and the form is the definition. From the distinctions, therefore, laid down by us originally as to which of the sciences we ought to denominate wisdom, is involved a reason for further styling each thus. For as far as a science is most qualified for the preeminence and for superiority over the rest, and so far as it is just that as servants the rest of the sciences should not contradict, so far such is a science of the end and of the good, for the rest of things are on account of this. But as far as wisdom has been defined a science of first causes, and of that which is especially capable of being scientifically known, so far such would be a science of substance. For, seeing that persons may acquire the same knowledge by many methods, we say that he rather understands a thing who makes known by its being what that thing is, than by its not being. And of these themselves, one in preference to another, and particularly he who knows what a thing is, and not he who knows the quantity or the quality of a thing, or what it is by nature fitted for in the way of action or of passion. Further, in the case of other things, the understanding each of those subjects concerning which there are demonstrations, we think then to have an existence when we may understand what a thing is. For instance, what the squaring of a right-lined figure is, that it is the finding of a mean proportional. In like manner is it in the case of the rest. But with regard to generations and actions and every kind of change, we are in a way of understanding each when we understand the first principle of motion, and this is different and in opposition to the end. Wherefore it would appear to belong to the department of a different science to investigate each of these causes. But truly, also, with regard to demonstrative first principles, whether they belong to one science or more is a question open to doubt. But I term demonstrative even those common opinions from which all derive their demonstrations. For instance, that everything must needs be either an affirmation or negation, and that it is impossible for the same thing to be and not to be at the same time, and whatsoever other such propositions there are. It is, I say, a question open to doubt whether there be one science of these and of substance, or a different one, and, if not one, whether it is necessary to denominate as such the science under investigation. Therefore, it would not then appear reasonable, indeed, that it should be the province of one science. For why, in preference, should the perception concerning these peculiarly belong to geometry rather than to any other science whatsoever? If therefore, in like manner, truly it belongs to any whatsoever, but it does not admit of belonging to all the sciences, as neither is it the peculiarity of the rest, so neither is it the province of that science which makes known the substances to investigate concerning these. But at the same time also, in what way will it be the science of these? For what each of these happens to be, we also now know. The rest of the arts, therefore, employ them as things known. But if there be a demonstrative science concerning them, it will be necessary that there be a certain subject genus, and that some of these indeed should be passive properties, and others axioms. For concerning all things it is impossible that there should be a demonstration. For demonstration must needs be composed of certain principles, and be conversant respecting some thing, and the demonstration of some things. Wherefore it happens that there is one particular genus of all things that are being demonstrated, for all the demonstrative sciences employ axioms. But truly, if there be a science on substance different from the one concerning these, which of them is by nature fitted to be more sovereign and prior? For especially and universally the principles of all things are the axioms. And if this is not the part of the philosopher, whose else will it be to speculate into the truth and falsehood regarding these? And upon the whole, whether of all substances is there one science or more? If indeed, therefore, there is not one science of such, what sort of substance must we consider as the subject matter of this science of ontology? But that there should be one science of all substances is not reasonable. For there would be one demonstrative science concerning all things that are essential accidents, if every demonstrative science in respect of a certain subject speculates into essential accidents from general opinions. Respecting then the same genus, it is the province of the same science to investigate the essential accidents from these same general opinions. For an examination respecting the wherefore belongs to one science, and to one respecting those elements whereof a thing consists, whether both investigations belong to the same or a different science. Wherefore, the like will take place in regard of accidents, whether these will investigate them, or one of those. But, further, might we examine whether the speculation is confined only to substances, or is also concerning the accidents in these. But I say, for example, if a solid be a certain substance, and lines and surfaces, whether it be the province of the same science to take cognizance of these things, and of the accidents of each genus about which the mathematical sciences demonstrate, or if it be the province of a different one. For if, indeed, of the same, there would be a certain demonstrative science, and that the science of substance, but of the essence, or formal cause, there does not appear to be a demonstration. But if of a different science, what will be the science that speculates about the accidents of substance? For this would be altogether difficult to render an account of. Further, also, whether must we say that there are sensible substances only, or also, besides these, others, and whether do the genera of these substances happen to subsist singly, or are they more numerous, as, for instance, they who speak both of forms and media between forms, and things sensible concerning which, they say, are conversant the mathematical sciences. As to the assertion, then, indeed, that we have made, namely, that forms are causes and substances absolutely subsisting, it has been declared in the earliest of our disquisitions concerning these. But as these inquiries in many ways are clogged with difficulties, it would be no less absurd the assertion that there are indeed certain natures besides those which are in the heavens, and that these are the same with things sensible, except that the former are indeed eternal, and the latter corruptible. For they speak of the existence of ideal man, and ideal horse, and ideal health, but say nothing else in regard of these, acting in a way similar to those who affirm the existence of the gods, no doubt, but in the shape of men. For neither did these latter constitute aught, save eternal men, nor do the former make species anything else, but eternal sensibles. But further, if in addition also to forms and sensibles, any will set down things intermediate, he will be involved in many doubts. For it is evident that in like manner there will be lines, and each of the other genera, besides also them that are sensible. Wherefore, since astrology is one of these, there will also be a certain heaven besides the sensible heaven, and a certain other sun and moon, and so with the rest, in like manner, of the bodies that are situated in the heavens. Although, how need one place confidence in such statements as these? For neither is it reasonable that this ideal heaven should be incapable of motion, but also that it should be capable of motion is altogether impossible. In like manner also is it the case concerning the objects whereof optical science treats, and that of harmonics in mathematics. For also it is impossible that these should have a subsistence different from sensibles through the same causes. For if things sensible and senses have an intermediate subsistence, it is manifest also that there will be animals which will be media between them, and things corruptible. But one would doubt also concerning what sort of entities it is necessary for these sciences to investigate. For if geodesy will differ from geometry in this only, that one is conversant about things which we perceive by the senses, but the other about things that are not cognizant by sense, it is manifest that besides the medicinal science, and besides each of the rest, there will be a certain science intermediate between the healing art itself and this particular art of medicine, although indeed how is this possible? For also would there be, in such a case, certain salubrious qualities in addition to those that are sensible, and to the salubrious itself. But, at the same time, neither is this true, that geodesy is conversant about sensible magnitudes, and those that are corruptible. For it would fall into decay when they were in process of being destroyed. But truly, neither will astronomy be conversant about sensible magnitude, nor about yon heaven. For neither are the lines that fall under the cognizance of the senses the same as the geometrician describes them. For not of the things that are perceived by the senses is in this way strictly straight or round. For the circle touches the rule, not in a point, but, as Protagoras was accustomed to say in his refutation of the geometricians, neither are the motions and the evolutions of the heavens similar to those about which astrology has formed its systems, nor have the symbols the same nature with the stars. But there are some persons who say that these reputed media between forms and sensibles are not indeed separable from sensibles, at least, but inherent in them. And to enumerate all the impossibilities attendant upon these statements would require a more copious discourse, but even it will be sufficient to speculate thus much on this point. For neither is it reasonable that this should be so in the case of these merely, but it is evident that it would be possible also for forms to subsist in sensibles, for both of these are results of the same process of reasoning. But further, must there needs be two solids in the same place, and these mathematical entities must needs not be things incapable of motion, seeing that they, at least, subsist in sensibles that are being moved. And in short, on what account will any one lay down their having a subsistence indeed, and a subsistence in sensibles? For the same absurdities, with the things that have been previously spoken, will ensue. For there will be a certain heaven in addition to the heaven we see, except that it will not be separate, but in the same place, which is still more absurd. Chapter 3. Now, respecting these points, much doubt therefore prevails,